Go ahead and start. Gauragraganya gana gocha goloruharam Gauranga gurutama gopyara kopa vriksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Uttama adama kichuna bachila jachiya dileka kola Kahe premananda hemona gauranga hridaya dariya bola Bhaja gauranga kaha gauranga Laha gaurangira namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamar Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama Pumata Tasmai Jaganmangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikriyat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sashanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatapta Brajabala Pahima Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. It's nice to see everyone here today. We were just giving a katha yesterday for Gaur Purnima here in Debrecen, and I was telling Krishna Kun how happy I am to be in association with devotees, and how it's just really special to be in physical association with devotees. But there's also something special about being online. And what's special is that you don't want to be online. Gaura Prabhu wrote me recently some nice comments which I need to reply to. And I think he was expressing the feelings that so many devotees have all over the world. He said, I'm just sick of Zoom classes. I'm sick of online association. I want to see devotees. I want to be with devotees. And that's a fact. That's our mood. But at the same time, we should remember something. And what we should remember is that Krishna orchestrated separation for the Brijbasis on purpose. It wasn't that they wanted it, and as we sometimes comment, if you go to tell the Braj Gopis that it's okay, you can see Krishna on Zoom. He's giving some Zoom class from Mathura or from Dwarka, and you can be with him. The Gopis won't be satisfied with that. They'll never be satisfied. They want to be with Krishna, and so they can render service to him physically. So there's a purpose to Krishna's creating a separation and create some intensity. And we should appreciate, I think, that Krishna has arranged this world situation today, which is so chaotic and so crazy, and the temperature is rising so high all over the world. Krishna Kun and I were talking today, there's just arguments everywhere. amongst the devotees, and devotees who are senior devotees who should be focused on bhajan and internal things. Now they're just focused on external things, the institution and management and this and that, and trying to change the world through revolution and expose. And it's a very, very sad thing. It's a very sad thing. It's a very confusing thing for all of us. It's something which hurts the heart very much. But this is also the situation that we're in. and as Srila Prabhupada's dear godbrother, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, sometimes would comment, the environment is always friendly. We should understand that Krishna has put us in this situation. There's a reason for that. So I want to go ahead and start today, and we can recite together this beautiful prayer by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This from this Narottam Prabhu Ashtakam. Shri Krishna Nama Amrita Vaishi Vaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Buraya Kuranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Nama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again, I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So it's so nice to see everybody here today. We want to associate with devotees in this way by coming together and hearing Krishna Katha and doing Kirtan, because hearing Krishna Katha and doing Kirtan together creates love. And when we do it with devotees, it creates love for the devotees. It makes us steady in our bhakti. It protects us. It's a very, very important thing. So we're going ahead with Prema-bhakti-candrika. In our last session, last few sessions, 2 sessions, we started the second chapter where Rupa Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur evokes Rupa Goswami. He says that Srimad Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada and Anuktam. He addresses Rupa Goswami as Prabhupada. Sometimes Bhaktivinoda Thakur is addressed as Prabhupada, and of course Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Jiva Goswami. These are all Prabhupada's persons who at the lotus feet all the Prabhus are sitting. So he quoted this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Nanya Vilasita Shunyam, which we spoke about 2 sessions ago, and then he echoed it and kind of gave a further description of that in his Bengali. Let's see if we can bring that up. So Anya Bilasa Chadi. Chadi here means to renounce or to give up all this Anya Bilas, Jnana, Karma, Padihari. In the Jnana and Karma, you don't want to be attached to that. You just want to drop it. You want to abandon that Jnana and Karma. So he's elaborating a little on the importance of this Anya Vilasita Shunyam verse, and that we want to strive for Bhakti Parama, the topmost Bhakti. And then in the next verse, which we're going over today, he gives some little more specific instructions about what that means. This is a very beautiful verse. Many of the points in this verse today are points that we've covered even elaborately in some of our previous sessions. So I don't feel so inspired to go over most of them so elaborately. But I just want to go through the entire verse and focus on the meaning. So we're trying to be with Narottam Das Thakur. And then I want to focus on a few specific points which I think are relevant for us. So Narottam Das Thakur says, Mahajanira Jayapata Tate Habe Anurata. That I should have Anurata, I should have great attachment for the path of the Mahajans. And he says then there are 2 types of Mahajans, Purva Para Korya Bichar. This is my Bichar, my consideration. I want to follow the previous acaryas, and I want to follow the contemporary acaryas. Sadhana, Smarana, Lila, Ihatena, Kora Hela. Hela means to neglect. So I don't want to neglect sadhana or Smarana Lila. I don't want to neglect remembrance of Krishna in my sadhana. Koye mane koriye susar. Doing these things, both with kaya and mana, with my body and my mind, is koriya susar. This is the essence of bhakti. We should act both with our body and with our mind in the ways that he just described. We should follow the path of the Mahajanas, be very attached to that, both the previous acaryas and the current acaryas, and we shouldn't neglect thinking about Krishna in our sadhana. And we should follow this with our body and with our mind. This is the essence of bhakti. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's commented on this verse. It's interesting, as we mentioned previously, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written a Sanskrit commentary on the Bengali Prema-bhakti-candrika. Sanskrit is a very high-class kind of writing. It's like someone writing Shakespearean writing. We don't have this very much in our contemporary world today. I'm a publisher and a writer, and I can tell you, as a writer, we've discussed this many, many times. Sometimes I've written for Suraj Prabhu for his scholarly journal, and we write a little more highbrow, a little higher vocabulary. But even for that journal, sometimes he was telling me, no, don't use so many big words and things. It's not necessary. People don't relate to it. It's just that today in our common society, things have been dumbed down so much in terms of language that people like a common language. But if you would hear my Guru Maharaj give class in Oriya language, I would ask some of my godbrothers, Oriya godbrothers, afterwards, oh, did you like the class? And one common comment that I repeatedly heard from them, and these are devotees who grew up speaking Oriya their whole life, knew Guru Maharaj, grew up around Guru Maharaj, they told us that actually I couldn't understand very much of the class because the language he used was very, what we might say in American English, very highbrow, very high-class language, very Sanskritized language. So in Vedic culture, when someone wants to establish tattva, when they want to do something for the sampradaya, our acaryas traditionally would write in Sanskrit. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's given a Sanskrit commentary on Prema-bhakti-candrika, which is a Bengali book. Bengali meaning Narottam Thakur has written something which is meant for everybody. But now Vishwanath has given a Sanskrit commentary on it, indicating that he considers this to be in the category of our acaryas. So Vishwanath has written, Dandakaranyavasi munayo brihat vamanokta shutayascha chandakanti Jayadev Vidyapati Chandidas Bilvamangal dasya chapurva Mahajana Sadgoswamina para Mahajana. So he defines here what Narottam Thakur is saying, that what is a Mahajana? There's Purva and Para. There's a previous Mahajanas and there's a contemporary Mahajanas. And he says that the previous Mahajanas are like the sages of Dandakaranya, which are mentioned in the Brihad Vamana Purana. Dandakaranya Basi Munio Brihat Vamanopta Shutayascha. And then there's the Shrutaya, the personified Veda. There's sages like Chandrakanti, Jayadev Goswami, Vidyapati, Chandidas, Bilvamangal. These are the Chapurva Mahajana. Those are the Chapurva Mahajana. These are the previous Mahajanas. And then he says, who are the present Mahajanas? Sadgoswamina para Mahajanaha. The present Mahajanas are the Six Goswamis. So we should understand this. In the Dandakaranya forest, the sages of Dandakaranya are described in the Padma Purana. Pura Maharshaya Sarve Dandakaranavasinaha Rama Drishva Harim Tatra Bhoktam Aichan Suvigraham. te sarve sritvam apanaha samudbhutascha gokule harim samprapya kamena tato mukta bhavanavat. That previously Pura means in ancient times there were these maharshis, these sages, sarve dandakaranya basi. They were basis. They were residing in the Dandakaranya forest, the Dandakaranya basis. And when Ramam Drisva Harim Tatra, when Lord Ramachandra came there, and they saw him, Drisva Harim, seeing him, stole away their hearts. And they prayed that somehow they could attain Lord Ramachandra. They could get some Raganuga Bhakti to attain him. And how they attain the deities of the Vedas, the Shrutis, how they attain the position of the Lord's lovers is mentioned in the Brihad Purana, which is mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his commentary in his verse. And the Brihad Purana says, Kandarpakoti labhanye tvayi dristi manamasihna kamani bhavamasad yasmara kshubdhanya samsaya yata taloka basinya kama tatmena gopika vajanti ramanam matva chirkish sajani nastata. That when the presiding deities of the Vedas, who were residing at Brahma Lok, when they saw Krishna, they prayed to Krishna. They said, Kandarpa koti labhanye tvai driste manam asi. They said, when we see you, we become so very, very confused. You're just as beautiful as Kandarpa koti, as tens of millions of cupids. And kamani bhavamasa yasmarak shubdanya samsaya. We want to have bodies. We want to be able to remember you in the same way. Yata means in the same way. Ta loka bhasinya kama tatpena gopika. In the same way that the gopis of Braj. We're always meditating on you in a way of kama, in a way of divine lust. This is our desire. In the Padma Purana, there's also a story, long story, about Chandrakanti. She was a Gandharva maiden, and she worshipped Krishna, and she got a boon from Lord Brahma that she would meet with Srimati Radharani, the daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu. And because of that boon, she attained Krishna's service. And she wanted to enjoy with Krishna, it's described in the Padma Purana, like a gopi, like a lady lover. And similarly, in explaining this verse, who are the previous acaryas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says it means Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, Bilvamangal. All of these personalities, they worship Krishna in the mood of gopis. And all of these are the Mahajanas that preceded Mahaprabhu. All of these are the personalities, in particular Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Bilvamangala, that Mahaprabhu was meditating on in the Gambhira. So when Narottam Das Thakur says that the Pura Mahajanas, he says Mahajana Jayapata, we want to follow the path of the Mahajanas. Which Mahajanas? Purva Para. Purva, the previous, and the Para. So Vishwanath says the previous especially were the sages of Dandakaranya, the personified Vedas, Chandrakanti Gopi, and Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Bilvamangala. So all of these personalities have this thing in common, that they all they were all in the mood of worshiping Krishna as a gopi. They all had that desire to be a gopi. They all had that mood, gopi bhav. And Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Bilvamangala, these were the personalities whose writings Mahaprabhu was meditating on. So these are previous acharyas. This is what Narottam Das Thakur is saying. Kaya mani koriye susar. Susar, sar means the essence. But this is not just the sar, this is a susar. This is the very special essence of everything. Which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments that susar, sar means the essence, but susar means the highest perfection. The highest perfection of essence. we want to follow in this way. So these are the previous acaryas that we want to follow, and it's very important that we meditate on them. And the present acaryas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, that's the Six Goswamis. So it's very, very important. And this is something we've stressed so much in some of our previous sessions. And we went through so many different statements from Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada said, I've not given anything new. Simply, I'm repeating the words of our previous acaryas. Simply, I'm introducing our previous acaryas. If you were to go to Srila Prabhupada and say, oh, Prabhupada, we're Prabhupada Anugas, and you're our founder acharya of our sampradaya, I think Srila Prabhupada might become very unhappy with that, because he never said that about himself. And we spoke elaborately about this. And this is what Narottam Das Thakur is pointing out here. And what is the necessity of pointing this out? Someone may say, I have my guru. Someone may say, I have Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is such a great personality, and certainly we have to follow Srila Prabhupada. We want Prabhupada's blessings, we want his mercy, we want to meditate on his mood, his instructions. But someone may say, I don't need any other acaryas. So Narottam Das Thakur is addressing exactly to the point this kind of mentality here, that we have to follow the path of the Mahajanas. And the path, just as any path, a path is not just, a decent path is not just 2 feet long, but a decent path may go for 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 100 kilometers. A decent path is very, very long. And in this pathway, comprised of our previous acaryas, it's linked to all of them. And if we give up our previous acaryas, it means we're giving up the pathway. So implicit in this is the conception, the understanding that what is the necessity, again, of even saying this? I may just follow my guru. Why don't you just speak about following a bona fide guru? That's all that I need. What is all this previous acharya stuff necessary? Well, what is the contemporary guru mean? Contemporary guru means someone who's teaching us according to Desha Kalapatra. As we've commented before in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, he says that the acharya speaks in 2 ways, Tatkalika and Sarvakalika, or for time and place, and for all time and place. And all acharyas do that. So we need to sort out which is which, and we need to understand. We need to understand Srila Prabhupada's Tatkalika, what he was speaking for time, place, and circumstance, not necessarily because, as some people might suggest, that some things that Srila Prabhupada said are not so important or not so relevant, so we should understand what our previous acharyas said, so we may give up certain things that Srila Prabhupada said. I wouldn't suggest that this is the meaning here at all. Rather, we should understand what is Tatkalika, because we want to know how to preach in Tatkalika, how to preach in this day and age. And Srila Prabhupada is teaching us that. But we should also understand that it being Tatkalika, it's not necessarily an absolute principle. And we see Srila Prabhupada did so many things. Srila Prabhupada was friends with Mayavadi. Srila Prabhupada went to hippie gatherings and rock concerts sometimes and has so many crazy disciples. And he put up with so many different things to teach us the principle of Tatkalika, that we should be ready to be very tolerant and present Krishna consciousness in a novel or appropriate way. There was a very nice quote that Lila Purushottam Prabhu posted recently in our chat. Maybe you can post it again here if you have it handy, Lila. I really like that. That thing you quoted before from Srila Prabhupada about how important it is that we should think about the present situation. So for me, this is Tatkalika. It doesn't mean that now I'm so proud that Srila Prabhupada said certain things and I'm just going to disregard them. But no, I should understand them in context. And understanding in context means that they may be Tatkalika, they're for time and circumstance. They're not Sarvakalika, they're not for all time and circumstance. So that means that maybe they're not as important. What's important to learn is the principle and Srila Prabhupada's mood. And some things may be a little flexible. For example, we posted something about the peacock feather we printed in our last magazine. And you see the earliest deities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the deities the deity of Mahaprabhu that Prabhupada worshipped in Jhansi, which he later gave to his godbrother and friend, Keshava Maharaj, in the Keshavji Gaudiya Mutt in Mathura. That deity never had a peacock feather. And you see that one of the first paintings, which was worshipped under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada, was practically painted by Srila Prabhupada's hand. Jadharani said Prabhupada practically took her by the hand. And we were commenting on this painting recently. If you look at that painting, well, let's see here. Maybe I can bring this up real quick. It's a really beautiful thing. That's wrong. If you look at the earlier paintings of Jadharani, and with no offense to Jadharani meant at all, Krishna Kun and I visited 26 Second Avenue some years ago, and we marked there that they had a number of Jadharani's earliest paintings, and there's something that like a 5-year-old kid might do. They're very, very simple. But this particular painting, all of a sudden, it's just amazing. And Jadharani, she commented that Prabhupada practically took her hand and made this painting. So let's see here. Next page. Nope, one more page. There we go. I love this painting. This is so nice. We'll also see this deity. The deity on the left, this is the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the first deity of ISKCON, really, before ISKCON, at the League of Devotees in Jhansi, and which is now in Mathura at the Keshavji Gaudiya Mutt. And this painting on the right, and let's look at this painting a little bit. Prabhupada commented to Jadharani that here's Advaita Acharya, and he said, this is Mukunda. This is Haridas Thakur here in the background. Of course, this is Nityananda and Gadadhar Mahaprabhu and Srivas Thakur here. And he said, these are the 4 sons of Mukunda in the background. And if you look at Mukunda, or if you look at Gadadhar perhaps, or Haridas Thakur, maybe I should zoom in a little bit, you can see the features are very, very simple. And these are more like the way Jadharani's paintings were at that time. If you see, they have a kind of sweetness to them, actually, I think. But then you look at these faces of Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, and Gadadhar, and they're incredibly sweet, incredibly beautiful. So this is Srila Prabhupada, really. And there's no peacock feather. But it's not that I want to suggest to devotees, using this as an example, the peacock feather, this is clearly something which is tatkalika, because as you'll notice in this article, this photo essay, there's no deities basically in our sampradaya who worship like that with a peacock feather, but Srila Prabhupada instructed that to a few devotees. So that's something tatkalika, but there's a reason for it, and we respect that. We want to respect and want to understand everything that Srila Prabhupada did. But it may not be necessarily absolute in all time and place. Therefore, it's tatkalika. So we should understand that in that regard. This is why Narottam Das Thakur is saying we also have to take shelter of our previous acaryas. Otherwise, if we don't take shelter of our previous acaryas, there's a lot of speculation. One thing I was thinking about today in connection with these statements from Narottam is I was thinking about what Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta called sahajas. And some persons, they don't appreciate that term. Sahaja is actually a common word in Bengali and Oriya language. It means simple. And sometimes the path of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is described in some places by acaryas as sahaja path, or the simple, easy path. It's also a particular school of devotees in this line who advocate sex life as a type of sadhana, and it was that which we really don't appreciate. But Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also use the word in a way which hadn't been used so much before to describe people who want to take things very easily. And in the way they were speaking, there's a certain kind of quality that we find in common amongst those people we might consider to be sahaja, and that is they concoct their own system of bhajan. Let me take you to our next issue of Krishna Katamrita Bindu, which is going to be released in a few days. Let's see here. This is the cover. This is this issue. We're doing it about humility and love of God. That's the title. And there's a beautiful picture on the cover of Lord Ramachandra with Hanuman and Sugriv and Jambavan and Lakshman and the different devotees, and everyone is exhibiting beautiful symptoms of humility. But I wanted to go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's article, here we go, which we titled, Humility Means Not Concocting Our Own System of Bhajan. And Bhaktivinoda says, the devotee who chants the holy name offenselessly never rejects the devotional process he received from his guru, nor introduces a new method, replacing the Mahamantra with some concocted and imaginary rhyme. A Vaishnava's humility cannot be doubted or challenged if he preaches the glories of the holy name and writes books, as long as he strictly adheres. Let's see here. This is a full-page picture next. As long as he strictly adheres to the instructions of his guru. One who tries to cheat and deceive others by making a show of humility, although he lacks it, just to gain cheap adoration, is not truly humble. The Mahabhagavat, who is constantly chanting, does not see the material world as something for him to exploit for personal gain, but as diverse paraphernalia for rendering service to Lord Krishna, his associates, and devotees. He does not think that this world is his to enjoy. Although he becomes proficient in chanting, he never considers giving up the Mahamantra. He's not interested in propagating new ideas and opinions. He realizes that to regard oneself as a guru of Vaishnava devotees strikes the death knell of his humility. To put that in a little different English, that if we start regarding ourselves that I'm a guru of the Vaishnavas, then that's our humility is dead. So when we speak about humility, this humility means that we respect our previous acaryas. And Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita, he's described Utsaha Nishchaya Dharya Tat Tat Karma Pavartana Sangha Tyagat Sato Brite Sabir Bhakti Prasidati. There's 6 activities which are favorable for bhakti. Sangha Tyagat Sato Brite, are important in this list. Sangha Tyagat, that we give up association of non-devotees, or here we could say we give up association of persons who are speculating, because Sato Brite, we want to follow the previous acaryas. So we don't make up our own bhajan path, our own path of bhajan, but rather we follow the Mahajanas. And this is one characteristic that I marked, which is common amongst the devotees that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada might call sahaja, or persons who are taking things in a sentimental way, that they commonly, I've seen it over and over and over again, they make up their own system of bhajan. Facebook is an interesting forum. I often comment about that place. And recently we're having some discussions there about ISKCON and things with devotees. I, in general, try not to have too much discussion, but a few months ago, there was an interesting discussion going on. There's one old friend of mine who's a devotee, and he started sending me all kinds of comments and lectures and things by someone that he likes very much, who's advocating his own unique kind of system of bhajan. A system of bhajan which, although it engages in the names of Nityananda Prabhu and Mahaprabhu, it's a system of bhajan which I haven't seen from our previous acaryas. So I just ignored it. And he's my old friend. That's his thing. I just ignored it. But then at one point, someone was attacking them. And I felt a little hurt, the tone of the discussion. So I jumped in the discussion, and in a very respectful, affectionate way, I addressed both my friend and his teacher, his guru, who's teaching his path. And I asked him, I said, I see devotees are being very harsh, and it must be painful for your heart. So I want to make some solution for this. I understand, I think these devotees also don't mean ill. They want to protect our sampradaya, and they're concerned that perhaps you're introducing something new. So if you could kindly just tell us which sadhu, which Mahajan did you get this bhajan pranali from? Is this from which guru gave this to you? If you could explain that to us. And secondly, if you could mention any contemporary Mahajans, and I listed a number of different famous devotees in our Gaudiya community today, in Gaudiya Mata and in ISKCON, that if you could mention in some particular contemporary Vaishnava sadhu who's given his ashirvad, his blessing for this, then I think that devotees would be pacified, and they would accept that. Could you please do that? And they were quiet. And they just started posting all these things talking about their system of bhajan, but not answering my question. And again, very respectfully, I said, look, I'm not attacking it. It's a very reasonable question. As I live in Jagannath Puri, and if you go to some temple and you start doing some new kind of bhajan, people will ask you, the sadhus there will ask you, who is your guru? Who did you learn this from? And they're not asking in a challenging, angry way. It's a respectful question, but it's an important question, because Narottam Das Thakur is teaching us Mahajana Jepata, that we have to follow the path of the previous Mahajans. So I was putting it in a very, very polite way with it. Anyway, the conclusion of our discussion there was that they had no comment. In other words, this is something which our friend made up himself. And it's some kind of bhajan, it's some kind of names of the Lord and that, and we respect that. But Narottam Das Thakur is saying that Koriya Susar, that we should follow the essence of bhakti. And the essence of bhakti means we follow the path of the Mahajans. And we have to follow both the previous acaryas and the present acaryas. And the present acaryas means the Six Goswamis in the definition of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In other words, we have our Gurudev, we have Srila Prabhupada, our founder acharya, and we follow his teachings, but we also follow our previous acaryas, and we don't see any disconnection between them. There's a very, very important principle. In the Mahabharata, famously, it's described, Vedavyas says that Tarko Pratisha Shutyovibinan Savasya Yashina Binam, that there's so many different ideas that so many different people have. Argument is apratishta, it's not conclusive. Shrutaya Vibhina, there's so many different statements in the Shastra. So how do we understand what is real Dharma? Dharma Shatattvam Nihitam Guhayam. That real Dharma is Guha. It's hidden. And where is it hidden? Mahajana Yena Gata Sapanta. It's hidden in the heart of the Mahajans. We have to follow those Mahajans. If we don't follow those Mahajans, then very quickly, very easily, we become Sahajya. It's a normal, accepted thing when you go amongst Vaishnavas for someone to ask, who is your guru? What is your line? Now, we know, if for those of you who've read Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami, he describes that we shouldn't say the name of our guru. We should bow our head. If someone asks us and we bow our head and we say Sri Srimad, and we'll say the name of our Gurudev. But in general, we don't say the name of our guru. Just like when I grew up, it was not acceptable for me to call my parents by their name. My mother's name was Janice, and I wouldn't call her, hey Jan, hey Janice, Hare Krishna. Even now that sounds terrible to me. I just couldn't consider calling my mother like that. And what to speak of calling my Guru Maharaj by his name, that's just inconceivable. So similarly, when we speak about them, usually we say our Gurudev, but if someone asks us, who is your Guru? It's not a wrong question, although Gopayad Gurumatmanaha, the Hari Bhakti Vilasa also describes that we don't advertise our Guru, meaning not that it says that we hide our Guru. What we hide is our relationship with our Guru. We hide our love for our Guru. It doesn't mean we deny our Guru, but we don't advertise that because who are we and who is he? But it's a common, respectable question for people to ask. And when we go, if you go to Jagannath Puri, you go to the temple of Tota Gopinath, they are going to look at you. If you have white skin, they're going to think Srila Prabhupada. They're going to think ISKCON. They're going to think of the contemporary ISKCON gurus, and you're representing them at that time. So we should understand that the guru, the disciple, represents the guru, and we should be conscious of that. And it's a bona fide question for someone to ask us, where did you get this system of practice? Because Narottam Das Thakur is stressing Mahajana Jayapata. We have to follow the path of the previous Mahajanas. Next, Narottam Das Thakur, in this verse, he describes that sadhana, smarana lila, ihate no kora hela, that we want to not be lazy. Hela, we don't want to neglect, we don't want to be lazy in performing our sadhana. And when we're doing our sadhana, it should be also smarana. We should be thinking about Krishna. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it said, Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dana Bhakti Yoga, Krishna Nama Smarana Krandana. That we should practice Bhakti Yoga, practice Bhakti Yoga, practice Bhakti Yoga. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati comments on the verse saying that it means that you can't do karma, you can't do gyan, you can't do yoga. You can only take up the process of chanting the holy name in this age. What is that holy name? Bhakti Krishna Nama. What is that Bhakti? Bhakti is Krishna's name, but it means Smarana Krandana. It means Smarana, remembering the Lord. It means being conscious about what we're doing. So this is a very important subject, and it's a subject of a little contention. I'm going to share with you some things today based on my understanding and what I've researched on this. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 12, Krishna says, Ataitat apyasaktosi kartam mad yogam ashritaha. This is text 11, chapter 12. Sarva karma phala tyagam tata kuru yatatmavan. That if you can't work for me, he says, while controlling your mind, you should be detached from the results of your work. Madhyogam ashritaha. You should practice this yoga. You should renounce everything and controlling your mind. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, Artha Varshani, he says, Sacha Bhakti Yoga Dvidida, that Bhakti Yoga has two types. Bhagavan Nishta Anta, that means being fixed in Bhakti in two ways, Anta Karna Vyapara, Baheskarana Vyaparascha, through the internal senses, and being fixed in Bhakti through the external senses. Okay, so with the internal senses, the Antakarna, he says, Tatra Pratamas Trivida, of this first type, Tatra Pratama, the first one, Trivida, there's three types of that. Smarnatmaka, Mananatmaka, Chakanda Smarna Samartye Tad Anuraginam Tad Abhyasa Rupam Cheti Trika Evayam Mandadiyam Durgamaha. There's three subcategories, which are Smaranatmaka, Mananatmaka, and Abhyasa Rup. Smaranatmaka and Mananatmaka are mentioned in text 8 of the 12th chapter, for those of you who want to look this up and meditate on it later perhaps. Abhyasa Rupa is mentioned in text 9. Abhyasa Rupa, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, Krishna says that you should practice. So Smaranatmaka, Mananatmaka, Smarana means that we use our mind, we practice remembrance. But mananatmaka means that we use our intellect. And he says that this, and for those who can't do that, then they practice abhyasa rupa. They practice remembrance. And that means that they may be doing some remembrance sometimes, other times they're not doing remembrance. So smaranatmaka, smarana means remembering. And different Vaishnavas have said this word smarana. Before you have the word smarana, you have the word marana. Marana means death. And that before we remember things, we should conquer all our desires and rise above the bodily consciousness. It means we should die materially. And then we can practice smarana. In other words, we have to have some qualification for this. And if we don't have that smarana, smaranatmaka, then we practice manana-atmaka. Manana-atmaka means that we contemplate what it is that we're doing. Abhyasa, manana, and smarana. Smaranatmaka, mananatmaka, abhyasa rup. These are the three different subcategories of the internal form of bhakti. Abhyasa is one of them. We're trying to remember through practice. Smaranatmaka means that we're remembering. But that remembrance is very difficult. So therefore we have manana-atmaka. Manana-atmaka means that we use our intellect and we contemplate on what we're doing. So in our line, the holy name is everything. And Srila Gorkishodas Babaji, he said that our Siddha Pranali is Trinadapi Sunichina Tororeva Sahisnana. Narottam Das Thakur here is saying that Sadhana Smarana Lila Ihatena Korahela, that we should remember this Lila of Krishna. And so this is a little bit of a controversial subject, and some devotees, they've recommended that even while you're in between, or even while you're chanting your japa, you should read some Lila book like Govinda Lilamrita or something, and it makes your japa a lot more nectarian. Probably it'll help a lot of us to stay awake, at least because for our mind, it's easier to grip onto that. But that's not actually smaranatmaka. That's mananatmaka. We're using the mind to understand and try to remember something. It's not something which is coming automatically. That reading means manana, and I'm contemplating. Smarana means you're not having to read. It's just coming to your mind automatically. But manana means we have to use our intellect. We use our intellect when we read. And Krishna Kun, for example, she's trilingual. She knows Russian, she knows Hungarian, she knows English. So last night we were having a discussion. Devotees were speaking to her in Hungarian and they're speaking to her in English. And maybe someone else is sitting off to the side speaking in Russian, and you see Krishna Kun's head kind of spinning around in a circle. It's very, very difficult. To discuss in all those different languages, you have to do manana. You have to apply your intellect. But something which just comes automatically, that's smarana. That's after marana. It's after death. It's just something which arises in an automatic way. So the holy name is like that. If we take shelter of the holy name, everything will come automatically. And therefore Rupa Goswami, in his Padyavali, he says that Bhamandanam Koti Sankhya-adikanam, that if you take all the different, if you count Sankhya, you count all the different Aishvarya yach Chaitana Yadangsaha, if you count all the different Aishvarya, and all the different Brahmandas, all the tens of millions of different Brahmandas, all that Aishvarya, and that Aishvarya also means intelligence. That Aishvarya also means remembrance and smarana. Yavat angsa, it's just a tiny little bit of a portion. Avirbhutam tan maha Krishna nama, of the holy name. Therefore, tanme sadhyan sadhanam jivanam cha, that the holy name is both the sadhya and the sadhana and the jivan. It's my life. It's the goal of my life. It's the means by which I'll attain the goal of my life. the holy name is everything. The holy name is Krishna. And therefore, Hari Bhakti Vilas quotes the Adi Purana, very famous verse, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur liked very much and quoted sometimes. He said, Nanama Sadrisam Gyanam, Nanama Sadrisam Vratam. It begins with this, Nanama Sadrisam Gyanam. There's no type of Gyan like the holy name. The holy name is the best type of Gyan. The holy name is the best type of knowledge. And then it says, Nanama Sadrisam Jnanam, that the holy name is the best type of meditation. There's no meditation equal to the holy name. And therefore the Vaishnava Chintamani describes Agachit Smaranam Vishnur Bhavyasena Sadayate Osha Spandana Matrina Kirtanam Tu Tatovaram. That it's very difficult to do Smarana. But on the other hand, it's very easy to chant the holy name. And therefore, chanting the holy name is considered to be superior. In the Amritavani of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, there is a conversation about the chanting and meditation with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Let me show this to you on the screen. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is asked, can we meditate on Krishna and his pastimes before we've achieved spontaneous devotion? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta replies, when we achieve the state of spontaneous remembrance by the influence of our chanting, we can worship the Lord in a solitary place. It's not possible to meditate with a disturbed mind. Trying to meditate artificially is simply another form of covered sense gratification. In another place, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta describes it as just illusion. Because we're seeing something, we're trying to understand something which are with our panchagyan indriya, with our 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, but those 5 knowledge-acquiring senses can only perceive panchatan matra, matter. And so we're meditating on something, but we're seeing it through our particular perspective. So he's saying here that when we achieve the state of spontaneous remembrance by the influence of our chanting, in other words, from that chanting, that remembrance will arise in an automatic way, in a natural way, because Krishna is the holy name. And in the Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that says that Name Prasvatito Hai Rupa Guna Karma, that from the holy name, Prasvatita will naturally blossom Rup Guna and Karma. Rup, the form of Krishna, the guna, the qualities of Krishna, and the karma, or the pastimes of Krishna. All those things will come automatically. You could also say that our Rup, Guna, and Karma. Some Vaishnavas, they meditate on their astakala, on their siddhadeha, on their eternal spiritual body. But Bhaktivinoda is also saying here that by chanting the holy name, that thing will come automatically. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says here also, Krishna's servants all engage in spontaneous meditation. It's not something that we have to try hard with our mind. There's nothing wrong with manana. Manana is necessary, it's helpful. But Smarana is not something that we can imitate. Smarana is going to have to come after Marana, after our bodily desires are finished. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, in chapter 39, he describes that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that Mahaprabhu, instructed Srup Damodar that he should disseminate rasa upasana. Let's see here, maybe I can also put this on our screen. This is a beautiful quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He instructed Srila Srup Damodar to disseminate rasa upasana, the process of bhajan, inculcated with rasa. Accordingly, he composed his diaries on rasa upasana, comprising 2 sections: the antapanta, the esoteric internal means of attainment, and the bahipanta, the exoteric external means of attainment. The esoteric process was entrusted to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, as described in his writings, and the exoteric means the external, rasa upasana, was allocated or given to Srila Vikeshwar Pandit, which is the treasure of our spiritual lineage. This exoteric rasa upasana was passed on to me by Srila Vikeshwar Pandit, and from me to Sri Jan Chandu, who has compiled it in a book, which you're now the fortunate recipient. This is the words of Jan Chandra Goswami's Guru.
Gopal Guru Goswami.
Thank you. So, in that particular book, which is a Gaura-Govinda Smarana Archana Padati, there is a beautiful description given. And this description is what generally our Babaji lines follow. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur here is describing that this is the exoteric or the external path. And it's something that they're trying to kind of fit themselves in a little box and try to meditate. I'm a gopi, I'm a this. And they're meditating or offering prayers to the manjaris, to the different sakis and things. And it's a bona fide path, which we respect. But the internal path is given by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And that internal path is the path of chanting the holy name and taking shelter of the holy name as giving us everything. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Amnaya Sutra, he quotes Srila Jiva Goswami. And he says that Atakrama Prapta Shravanam. He says, now I'm going to describe a Krama Prapta Shravana. Prapta means to attain. The sequence, the Krama, which is attained through hearing, Shravana. He says, Tachcha Namarupa Guna Lilomaya Shabdanadam Shrota Sparshaha. So it begins when these sounds touch our ears. And it begins with the holy name. That's the first thing. In his commentary on the Shikshastika prayers, Balaram Das, one great Vaishnava in the line of Shamananda Prabhu and Orissa, he's described that in the second verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nijasara Vishaktis, or excuse me, in the end of the first verse, he says that we should do Sankirtan. And what type of Sankirtan should we do? Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, Mahaprabhu says, all glories of Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Which type of Sankirtan? Does it mean Nam Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, Rupa Kirtan, Lila Kirtan? What kind of Kirtan? There's different types of Kirtans. And he says the answer is given in the next verse. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nijuksara Vishaktis. We begin with Nam Kirtan. And this is the same thing that Jiva Goswami describes in Bhakti Sandarbha, that this Krama Prapta Shravanam, there's a sequence to hearing. And that sequence begins with hearing Nam. We hear the holy name of Krishna. And that holy name purifies our heart. After our heart becomes more purified, then we can begin to understand something about the form of Krishna. After that he has a form at all. And then we begin to understand something about the guna of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna. Then we can begin to understand something about Lila Moya, the pastimes of Krishna. Pratamam, this is first. We hear our holy name and these things. And then when we become qualified, then this remembrance of Krishna's pastimes will come in a natural way. But it begins with hearing about the holy name. That's the natural krama, the natural sequence. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke about this quite often. I'd like to share with you another statement from him, which was published in Bhakti Vikas Maharaj's book, this Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav. And let me bring this up for you now. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, I'm overjoyed, this is from a letter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I'm overjoyed to hear that your enthusiasm for chanting is increasing as our contaminations are removed by chanting. At that time, as they're removed by chanting, the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. There is no point in making a separate effort to artificially remember the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord and his name are one and the same. This will be understood clearly when the coverings in your heart are removed. By chanting without offenses, you will personally realize that all perfections come from the holy name. Through chanting, the distinction that exists between the self and the gross and subtle bodies is gradually effaced, it's gradually destroyed, and one realizes one's own spiritual form. Once aware of the spiritual form, as one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual form of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's qualities. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual activities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes. By service to the holy name, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name. It also includes the other duties of the chanter. If we serve the holy name with the body, mind, and soul, then the direction of that service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. What is the nature of the holy name? Eventually, all these understandings spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. It is unnecessary to write anything further on this subject. All these things will be revealed to you through chanting. Now, this is an interesting statement. We should contemplate this point. He's indirectly stating at the end here that he's saying only the holy name, only the holy name, only the holy name. He's saying, stressing this again and again and again. It's only the holy name which will reveal your form. It's only the holy name which will reveal Krishna's form, etc., etc. But then he says, the true nature of the Harinam is revealed by listening, first of all, he says, by reading and studying the scriptures. So there's a point in studying Shastra. We want to read that Shastra. We need to do that. Then we'll understand the true nature of the holy name. And that nature of the holy name indicates also that Krishna has a form. Krishna has pastimes. We should remember that. Srila Prabhupada wrote in a letter to Prahladananda Maharaj, I'll show you here, in 1971 and 17th of June, he says, generally it is a process to simply chant and hear. But if Krishna's Leela comes into remembrance, that's very good. It should come automatically, though. Not that you're remembering artificially. If we're remembering artificially, then it becomes like the Sahajias, as I was mentioning earlier. We try to imagine something in our mind. And it may be well-intentioned. We may be reading a nice book like Govinda Lilamrita or something. I'm not speculating, Prabhu. I'm reading what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has said. It's not a speculation. But still, I'm seeing those words. I'm understanding those words with my mundane mind and senses. And Atashri Krishna Namadi Nabhavet Graim Indriyai. It's not possible to understand Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's pastimes with our material senses. But only sevanmukhi jiva do, when we're rendering service with the tongue, which means we're chanting as a service, then swayam eva sparatyada. Then those pastimes, then those qualities of Krishna's name, Krishna's pastimes, they manifest themselves automatically. It's not something that we have to artificially strive for. In the Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 8, text 4, there's a famous verse. Shinvatam Swadaya Nityam. Let me bring this up on the screen. Shinvata Swadaya Nityam Gunatascha Swachestitam Kalena Nati Dirgena Bhagavan Visate Hridi. That the Lord very quickly enters the heart of someone who continually hears and chants about the Lord's activities. Bhagavan Visate Hridi. Hridi means the heart. Vishate means to enter. Krishna very quickly enters into the heart. That indicates Smarana. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Sarita Darshani, he's given this commentary. Sopi smarana prayatnaha shravana kirtanavato bhaktasya navashyaka ityaha shinvita iti. That for someone who's doing shravanam kirtanam, who's hearing and chanting, for that bhakta, trying to do effort in attaining smarana, in remembrance, it's not required. Excuse me, let me take a throat lozenge here. He says, Swaprayatnam vinapi bhagavan swayam eva hridayam pravisatiti shravana kirtanadinam eva smarana iti gyapitam. He said, rather, spontaneously, hridayam pravisatiti, Krishna enters into the heart of the devotee who's doing shravanam kirtanam. He says that hearing and chanting shravanam kirtanam adinam, doing that shravanam kirtanam adinam, beginning with that adinam, that shravanam kirtanam, eva smarana niti gyapitam. You should understand niti gyapitam means that you should understand that this means smarana. This is a meaning of smarana. We don't have to try something artificially or separately. But at the same time, we should remember Krishna. Narottam Das Thakur is stressing here, sadhana smarana lila ihate nakora hela. Don't neglect, nakora hela. Don't neglect the smarana. But how do we do that smarana? So as we were describing earlier from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary in the 12th chapter of the Gita, there's 3 types of ways that we may practice that smarana. Smaranatmaka, mananatmaka, and abhyasa rupa. These are 3 different types of remembrance. Smarana atmaka, again, means something spontaneous, which is the real meaning of smarana. Manana atmaka means that we're using our intelligence. It means that, and abhyasa means we're practicing. We're sweeping the carpet, and we're trying to remember, my guru told me that I should sweep the carpet, I should vacuum the carpet, I should clean the temple floor. That's abhyasa. But manana means that I should contemplate the deep meaning why my Gurudev wants to do this. And that's also remembrance. That's a higher type of remembrance. And then comes smarana atmaka. And that smarana means marana. It means death. It means that automatically remembrance comes on its own. It's not an artificial thing. As Srila Prabhupada said, not that you're remembering artificially. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta stressed the same thing. It's not something artificial, but it should be something natural. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we just chant the holy name and that's it. We don't do anything else. In the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 25, text 25, there's a very important verse which is spoken by Lord Kapila-dev to his mother Devahuti. Prabhupada often quotes this. Satam prasangam mamavirya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata. Tas josnat asapavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati. Again, we were using this word krama earlier from Jiva Goswami. Krama means a sequence. Anukrama means a natural sequence that happens from shraddha, which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to this verse says means Vaidhi Bhakti, to Rati, which Vishwanath says means Bhav Bhakti, to Bhakti, which means Prema-bhakti. This will happen automatically, and it begins with Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Samvido Bhavanti Hritkarna Rasayana Kata. We want to hear this Rasayana Kata. This Kata, which is Rasayana. Using the word Rasayana, Lord Kapila-dev is indicating there must be some kind of sickness. Rasayana is a kind of medicine which gives life to somebody. Prabhupada translated here is something which is very pleasing. Rasayana kata means that kata which gives us life. It's satam prasangam. And we've often commented on Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation of this verse that what is the necessity of the prefix pra before the word sangha? He can just say Sat Sangam Mama Virya Samvido, that you should have good association with ISKCON devotees, with second initiated devotees, with devotees who chant 16 rounds a day. That's Sat Sangha. But what's the necessity of saying Prasanga? What is the difference between Sat Sangha and Sat Prasanga? Vishwanath says that Sat Sangha means going to Mangal Artik. It means chanting 16 rounds. It means telling the truth. It means taking care of your family. It means being a good person. What is Prasanga? Prasanga means Mama Virya Samvido, the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. Lord Kapilades, Mama Virya Samvido, my astonishing pastimes, which are Bhavanti Hritkarna Rasayana Kata, the medicine for the heart. It's a medicine for the heart. We have some heart disease. And in the 10th canto, what's the verse, Lila Purushottam Prabhu? At the end of the Ras Lila, Shukadev Goswami, he's understanding what Maharaj Pariksit is thinking, and that perhaps some of the rishis who are sitting here, they're going to think this is very bad, that Krishna's dancing with all these different ladies and things.
Hridrogam Ashpa Vihina Gachurina Tira. That one.
I think so. How does it begin?
I'm blanking on how it's about the lust in the heart. Hearing about the blanking on the first part of the verse.
Very famous verse, Shashini. Lila Purushottam, you like that verse quite a lot. What is it?
Vikriditam.
Vikriditam, right. Vikriditam means the pastimes. Vikriditam, the playful activities. Vikriditam, Brajavadu, that he's doing with these Braja gopis. This is the medicine for the heart. Hearing about this Ras Lila, it's an important thing. And in the 10th canto, again, the 31st chapter, the gopis tell Krishna, Tava katamritam tapta jivanam, that your kata, it's our life, it's our jivanam. Kavibira iditam kalmasapaham. It destroys, it drives away all sinful kinds of things. Shravana mangalam shrimad atatam. It's the most auspicious thing. Bhuvi grinanti buddhida jana. And it's described, it's given by those persons who are buddhida janas, the most magnanimous persons. So this is a verse much appreciated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a verse which is elaborately described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it also has a number of different purports to it. I won't go in that direction right now, but I want to just finish with a small quote from Srila Prabhupada's introduction to his Krishna book. He says, it is essential for persons who are actually liberated to hear about the pastimes of Krishna. That is a supreme, relishable subject matter for one in a liberated state. Also, if persons who are trying to be liberated hear such narrations, then their path of liberation becomes very clear. Lord Chaitanya has therefore advised his followers that their business is to propagate Krishna Katha. We've included this in our statement of purposes for our Krishna Katamrita magazine. This is something Srila Prabhupada wrote for common people in the introduction to the Krishna book, speaking about how this Krishna Katha is a supreme relishable subject matter for liberated persons. But also persons who are trying to be liberated, they should hear that. And then their path of liberation becomes very clear. In other words, by hearing that Krishna Katha, we'll understand the pathway. By hearing that Krishna Katha, we'll understand who Krishna is. Otherwise, as we sometimes commented, you're doing kirtan on the street, and it's ecstatic. And so many people are coming and joining in the Harinam, and we want them to join, we want them to chant, and they're getting so much benefit. But we should ask an unpleasant question. What are they thinking? And some of them may be thinking that this is a sex cult, and that if I chant this Krishna, Krishna, that I'm going to meet some girl in this group. Or some people may be thinking that I'm Krishna, and that by chanting Hare Krishna, I'm going to realize that I am Krishna. So it's necessary that we hear Krishna Katha. It's necessary that we hear the pastimes of Krishna. We want to hear who Krishna is. And then if we hear who Krishna is, then the path of liberation becomes very clear. The path of liberation means the chanting of the holy name. But that path of the chanting of the holy name may not be very clear if we don't hear Krishna Katha. And therefore, so often we cite the statements from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that just as you don't separate Krishna from Srimati Radharani, we also should not separate Krishna Nam from Krishna Katha. That Krishna Nam is Krishna himself, and Krishna Katha is none different from Radharani. Just as Radharani helps us to come to Krishna, that Krishna Katha helps us to come to Krishna Nam. So as Srila Prabhupada says, if we hear these narrations, then our path of liberation becomes very clear. So there is some purpose of Smarana. We want to hear Krishna book. We want to think about Krishna book. If we hear Krishna's pastimes and we understand something about Krishna, it'll automatically come to our heart when we're chanting the holy name. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises followers that their business is to propagate Krishna Katha. I'd like to look back at this statement again from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At the end of his letter, he said, eventually all these understandings spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. So I think this is the same point Srila Prabhupada is making here in Krishna book, that by the path of liberation becomes clear by hearing that Krishna Katha. The path of liberation in this day and age is the chanting of the holy name. And the holy name is everything. The holy name is the best type of meditation. It's not that meditation is bad, and therefore Narottam Das Thakur is strongly telling us that sadhana smarana lila ihate korohela karamanya kore susar. That we should follow this Mahajana path. This path of the Mahajanas means we should read their books, Habi Anurakta, with great attachment. Anurakta, we should be very attached to following this path of our previous acaryas, the previous Apurva Para, Korya Bichar. This is our consideration. Both the previous acaryas, meaning Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, Bilvamangal, as the previous acaryas, and the present acaryas, meaning the Six Goswamis, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And by studying their path, and we'll understand what is sadhana, what is smarana, lila. And we should meditate. We should do our sadhana. And while we're doing our sadhana, we should remember Krishna. We shouldn't, not korohela. We shouldn't be lazy. It's not just that all the books and the philosophy, that's very hard. I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm just going to work hard, and that's all that's necessary. We have to follow the path of our Goswamis. But if we follow that path in a proper way, then Yashya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yashya Prasada Nagatika Topi. If we please our Guru, then we'll please Krishna. We please our Guru by chanting the holy name, Tate Krishna Bhaji Kode Guru Seva. By chanting Krishna's name, doing that bhajan, that's pleasing to our Gurudev. This is following the previous acharyas. Kaya Mane, we do this both with our body and with our mind. So we should understand what he means by the body and what he means by the mind. And we should understand these three different types of smarana, which are explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Koriya Susar. He says, this is not just the sar, not just the essence, but this is the susar. This is the very, very special essence of bhakti. He's put it all together in one simple verse here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and ask the devotees if anybody has any reflections or comments or anything. And maybe we'll start with Gora Prabhu, who's, if he's still alive. Gora Prabhu made some comments. I'm going to switch up the cameras. He's doing puja. I don't know if you're available, Gora, you can share something. And there's a few different comments here.
Hare
Krishna, Gora, do you have any reflections you want to share with us?
Can you hear me?
Taking part. Yeah, we can hear you. We can even kind of see you in a little bit. You're effulgent there, even in the dark.
Well, I've just for a walk by the river now.
Uh-huh.
And yeah. so I don't wake up anybody. Thank you so much for the kata. That was really amazing and very, very relevant to. Yeah, it's a topic which I often contemplate and think about, and I write to my Gurudev about it, and I write to you about it, and I ask so many questions about this. And one thing which I'm realizing is what a sahaja I am. Yeah, I mean, like, I shouldn't laugh about it because it's a very serious thing, and yeah, I always go back and forth. I oscillate between trying to chant and just hear the holy name, and then sometimes, I just dive into this even months and months of chanting, and while I'm chanting, I'm thinking of all sorts of things. And while I'm just trying to chant, obviously the monkey mind is I'm wrestling with the monkey mind and just trying to hear the holy name. And I hear so many like apparently contradictory things. Like just the other day, I was listening to a lecture. My Gurudev was giving a lecture, and it was just before Gorpanim, so he was encouraging his disciples in the Ukraine that you please read Madhya Lila, the chapter about Lord Chaitanya in Vrindavan, and while you're chanting, this is what you should think of. So he was encouraging everyone that while you're chanting, there should be thoughts. And he quoted a letter from Srila Prabhupada, a letter to Shivananda, I think in Germany. I can't remember the date. Yes. But in that letter, I think it's a reply. Shivananda was asking Prabhupada, is it offensive to think of the pastimes while we're chanting? And Prabhupada's reply is, no, it's not offensive. We should think of the pastimes while we're chanting. But obviously there's so much more detail to it. And
we should think about the pastimes, but it's not something that should be artificial. And I think also Srila Prabhupada, to take a letter to someone in the very early days of Prabhupada, maybe was just encouraging him, just chant. Just remember, it's a little out of context. But it's a fact. We should think. We should have something there. But that will come when we follow the path of our previous acaryas and we read these books. And we don't just read these books, but these books are our life. We want to just digest these books. We want to fill our hearts with these books. And then there's something inside the heart. We want to, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, first we hear about these passages in the proper person. In the hearing, we have some relationship with the speaker. And then it touches our heart, it comes to our heart. And then automatically it'll come out of our mouth and we chant. Then we know who Krishna is. Just therefore we were saying that we may be doing kirtan on the street and a group of drunk college students comes and they start responsibly chanting, and we're chanting Hare, Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare, the devotees do sometimes. And they're chanting like that. And that's great. We're so happy that they're chanting, they're getting so much benefit. But what in the world are they thinking when they're chanting? So there's something more which is required. So when we start hearing about Krishna from Srila Prabhupada, from our Guru, then automatically be some remembrance. When we chant Krishna's name, then we're not thinking, I'm Krishna. We're thinking that beautiful boy who's blue and has a flute and like that. But ultimately, that shouldn't be something, it shouldn't be abhyasa roop, nor should it be manana. It shouldn't be something that we're trying to cultivate. That's better. But ultimately, it should be something which comes automatically. And if we just follow this path of Mahajanas, it comes that way. That's my humble understanding.
Thank you again. And I didn't really understand what is abhyasa rupa.
Abhyasa means to practice. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sarta Varshini commentary there He speaks about two types of bhakti, first of all. One which is done with the kaya, with the body, and the second with the mana, the mind, which is the same thing Narottam is speaking about. That's why I chose to focus on this purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Narottam saying in this verse we're studying today, kaya mana, that we have to practice with our body and our mind. So he says there's two types of bhakti, one with our body, one with our mind. And that with the mind, he says there's three types: smaranatmaka, mananatmaka, and abhyasa rup. Abhyasa rup is the most external. He said that's also a kind of remembrance, but that's remembrance by practice. And that's maybe where we're at. We're just artificially trying to remember something. We're practicing that. Abhyasa yoga yuktena, Krishna says that we should practice this thing. Manana means that we're contemplating the purpose behind what we're doing. We're contemplating the mood of our Gurudev, the reasons why he did these things. That's kind of changing the gears. And after practicing Vyasa for some time, as we've often commented, we'll come to the platform of Manana. By practicing Manana, we'll automatically come to the platform of Smarana. But if we try to jump to Smarana automatically, then that becomes Sahaja. And we see a common thing that amongst devotees, which are usually described by Srila Prabhupada as Sahaja, is they try to exhibit external ecstatic symptoms. And I've seen sometimes, I remember a few times on our parikramas, once when Mataji was sitting in the class in the back, and all of a sudden she looked really ecstatic and she just fell over. And all the devotees, oh my God, what is it? and oh, it's ecstasy or something. And then someone else later said, she does this quite often. And then if you got a little closer, you started speaking to the Mataji, she's a little crazy. And another time I remember we had somebody else in the kirtan, they started becoming really ecstatic and they just fell on the ground and started rolling on the ground. And that may be there, but it's not that we imitate that thing should come automatically. And the nature of a sahaja, or someone that Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta called a sahaja, someone who takes things easily, is they try to imitate those ecstatic symptoms rather than just being natural and coming to them. The real sahaja is a follower of the Goswamis who chants the holy name, and those symptoms come to him in a natural way. That's a real sahaja. But these prakrita sahajas, which Srila Prabhupada called prakrita sahajas, materialistic sahaja persons, they're imitating, they're using something material to try to imitate that. Is that more clear, Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, Gora, thank you. It's really good to have your input again. And I didn't reply to your text. You can't believe, yesterday, my God, we released a website. I released 2 publications. I'm like just going crazy.
I can imagine.
So many things going on. I have a lot of letters and things. Also, Harichandra Prabhu has written me a couple times some very sweet things. And I'm thanking you guys, but sometimes it's really hard for me to give much.
No problem.
Please forgive me.
No problem. I'm just so glad to be able to participate today.
Yeah, I'm really glad too. It's really nice to see you. Thanks you for your input. Let's see who else is present. Gauri Thai Prabhu, would you like to share something? It's also really late for you right now. What time is it for you? It's 5:30 here. It's 6. It's 10 o'clock at night for Gauri Thai Prabhu.
It's not so late.
Not like Gora Prabhu anyway. But Gora Prabhu, I think he just got up a little earlier.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's not the first time when we hear you to explain these kind of things. But I'm sure it's a very, very deep and very complex topic. So I was just pick up a few things. One is how to use the English word remembrance. So I don't know so much English, but I think it's very difficult to find enough synonyms for covering all these meanings of the Sanskrit terminology. So can you speak something about if we have this kind of disturbance of hearing the same thing, remembrance, and you say, or remembrance only when you leave your body. And then you remember Krishna. You should remember just to read a Krishna book. So it's quite,
Yeah, therefore, this purport is beautiful purport from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where there's two types of bhakti, done with the body and done with the mind. And with the mind, there's three types. There's the Smaranatmaka, Mananatmaka, and Abhyasa Rupa. The Abhyasa Rupa we're practicing sometimes in the beginning. We're practicing remembrance. We should remember Krishna all the time. This is the instruction of our Guru. I remember Fakir Mohan Prabhu spoke to us very heavily, Bhakti Rupa and I in his classes, and he said that you should be chanting the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. And Bhakti Rupa said, well, what about when you're working on the computer, you're editing something, you're writing something? And I can tell you, when you're writing, you can ask Krishna Kun. I'm telling you, don't even like whisper, don't make any sound, because I want complete silence. It takes so much concentration when you're writing, when you're editing something. But Fakir Mahaprabhu said, no, even while you're doing that, you should be chanting Hare Krishna. I have to confess, I haven't completely gotten to that point of that yet, but we're trying. And that's abhyasa. We're trying to chant Hare Krishna even while we're doing those things. And that chanting Hare Krishna constantly, remembering the holy name, then automatically Krishna will reveal himself. And it won't just be some imaginary thing in my mind that I perceive, that I think Krishna is so wonderful. This is famously in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, someone told Srila Prabhupada, an early devotee, said, Swamiji, when I chant Hare Krishna, I see this light. And Prabhupada said, just keep chanting and it'll go away. So that's an example of some speculation. In the beginning, they're chanting Hare Krishna and they're having what they think is some kind of experience, but it's just a speculation. And there may be a higher level of that. And we see sometimes, honestly, sometimes the Russian devotees are very famous for that. They're very sentimental. You see, last night I had a dream, and Mother Yashoda gave me some pizza, and it was really nice, and there was jalapeno peppers on the pizza, and she told me like this, and they're crying and whatever. And that's nice. It's certainly better than having a dream of Times Square or some mundane movie or something like that. It's still nice to think of Mother Yashoda, even if she's offering you pizza with jalapenos on it. But that may just be our own mental construct. But still, that's a kind of remembrance. Why is that mental construct come there? Because she's been hearing about Mother Yashoda. And she's thinking about Mother Yashoda. So that's coming. Another example which we cited recently, one Mataji, her mother was getting ready to leave her body, as I recall as a mother. And she heard about that, so her mother requested, you please come to me. And the mother was not only she was very much against Krishna consciousness. She practically hated the devotees. And she was always being very nasty and very critical with the devotees. But her daughter came there, and her mother didn't have anything nice to say about the devotees. It was all bad. And anyway, her mother was getting more and more sick as the days go by. And finally, she left her body. Just before she left her body, her mother looked at her daughter, in her very last words. She looked at her daughter. She said, so, where is your Krishna now? And she left her body. So the Mataji later went to Srila Prabhupada and she described what happened. She said, Prabhupada, so what does that mean? This is her last words. And Prabhupada said, it means that she went back to Krishna. So that's some kind of remembrance. Now, I'm studying the pastime of a Jamil and how a Jamil didn't go immediately back to the spiritual world. But he got some opportunity first to associate with devotees and understand more about the nature of Krishna before he went back. It seems likely to me, based on that story, that Mataji, she probably in her next life got some association or something, which is practically like being liberated. And she got some opportunity for something further. So different levels of Smarana are going to be there like that. But we have to practice. And we have to give our mind to that. And that's why Srila Shivaram Maharaj is stressing so much I'm really appreciating very much Maharaj's writings about how it's not enough just to think that oh, I'll just chant Hare Krishna, and even I'm distributing books, I'm getting up and going to the Mangal Artik and this and that, but I should also be reading the works of Rupa and Raghunath, the works of our Six Goswamis. I have to be following the path of our Goswamis. I should be thinking about these things. But how do I think about those things? Maharaj is also speaking about it in a very careful way, so that we don't become like Sahajas and just artificially jump and start crying or artificially, like I'm saying about this Mataji who fainted or something. But as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, we begin with this rupa, abhyasa rup. We practice that thing, and then from abhyasa rup comes mananatmaka, and then comes smaranatmaka automatically. Is that a little more clear, Gwanitai Prabhu?
Yeah. And one more thing, if you allow me, that you mentioned Raghunath Das Goswami, who is the esoteric part of, like the acharya of this esoteric part of trying to remember Krishna. And I found that his way, how he's composing his songs is very helpful for a very simple practitioner also, which he says that when I will become like that, when I will be able to chant, then this holy name will reveal me to Krishna's form or Krishna's pastime. So this when I would be, allowed, it would be blessed. That's a very helpful practice for me before chanting, or sometimes when nothing happened and just chant, and you are really struggling, and then you pray like that. It's helpful.
Yeah, that's abhyasa that we're practicing by reading Raghunath Das Goswami's books. We should do that. That's our practice, and then those things will come to our mind, and we'll remember what Raghunath Das Goswami's feelings were, and especially want to hear those things from someone. And then we can begin to contemplate on it, manana, and then eventually come to Smarana naturally. All right, thank you so much, Prabhu. I feel embarrassed saying all these things in front of you. Your Guru Maharaj is really getting into these things in such a beautiful way. I highly recommend the devotees to read Sri Ram Maharaj's books in these regards. So there's a lot of comments here in the chat. Let's see, Tirthakar Prabhu posted something. It's really hard. Here it is. This is a letter Prabhupada wrote to Karandar. Oh, this is, I think, what Lila Purushottam Prabhu was referring to, isn't it?
Yes. I asked him to post it here because he has his WhatsApp in the computer and I don't have. So I just posted into Pariprashna group on WhatsApp, but he put it here.
The new procedures you are instituting on Sankirtan Party are very encouraging to me. The opportunities for expanding the Sankirtan movement are unlimited. We should tax our brains as to what is the best way to present Krishna consciousness to particular people at a particular time and place. So that's Tatkalika. It's not Sarvakalika. It's Tatkalika. It's a time and place. But Tatkalika, the consideration Tatkalika that Bhaktivinoda speaks about in Jaiva Dharma, is not like 10th class or bad or Maya or wrong or something someone may think. Tatkalika means the expertise of the acharya, the expertise of the devotee who's empowered and inspired by their guru and the acharyas to understand how to present Krishna consciousness in an appropriate way to particular people at a particular time and place. But we also understand that what the particular thing they're doing is not necessarily absolute. I'll give you an example. Srila Prabhupada kept a jar of globulins by the door of the temple. It's not that every temple we have to keep a jar of globulins, and if you don't have a jar of globulins there, you can't practice bhakti, and it's not going to work. Prabhupada did that, and it was a very good practice. We should understand that why he did that Tatkalika thing. It wasn't something which is Sarvakalika for all place and time, but it was a particular time and circumstance. Their senses were so agitated, they really helped them to have those globulins. I think it might help a lot if we all have jar of glubsmans around, actually. But we should understand that it's not something that we have to insist upon that everybody does. So that's a really nice thing. Gaur Jai Gaur Prabhu comments, he asks a question. Where does chanting in front of the deity form of Radha and Krishna, or a particular picture or painting that moves our heart, fit into all of this? I would suggest, well, that could be Abhyasa, that could be Mana, that could be Smarana. That picture, that particular form may fit into all three categories. In the beginning, it's something which is generally recommended for new devotees, that we take that form of the deity so that our mind can think of Krishna. We have that. It helps us to remember that this is Krishna. Therefore, my Guru Maharaj used to stress that you should chant in front of the deity. You should chant in front of the picture. We should chant in front of Gurudev and realize that like Gurudev is present with me. I used to chant japa sometimes in a room with my Guru Maharaj, and it's a very, very powerful, wonderful thing. I'm chanting, this is my service to my Gurudev, and now he's here right in front of me. I'm chanting like this. So I should have the same opportunity by sitting and chanting in front of his picture. So that may be abhyasa, but then it may also be manana. There may be a deeper level to that chanting in front of the picture where I contemplate more about, I'm chanting in front of the picture of Radha Shamsundar, in front of the deities of Radha Shamsundar in Vrindavan or in Hungary. And I'm chanting here because I know they like to hear the sound of their name. It gives them pleasure. That's manana. It's not something coming automatically. And then Smarana may just come. Maybe I have the picture, maybe I don't have the picture. Rupa Goswami, we don't hear descriptions that Rupa Goswami was chanting 3 lakhs a day. We do hear descriptions that Haridas Thakur was chanting 3 lakhs a day. Does it mean that Rupa Goswami is on a lower platform than Haridas Thakur? No. We're Rupa Nugas, we're followers of Rupa Goswami. But Rupa Goswami, sometimes he may chant one name or even one syllable of the name, Krish, and then suddenly he would see Krishna's pastimes. And his chanting would be finished for the whole day while he was just sitting stunned in Smarana, which came automatically to him through the holy name. It wasn't a practice of Vyasa, it wasn't something to intellect manana, but it just came automatically, Smaranatmaka. That's our ultimate goal. That's something genuine. That's not something, trying to artificially remember is like trying to force our way into the party. Radha and Krishna are having a party with the gopis on the bank of the Jamuna. It's called the Ras Lila. And we try to crash the party. We put on a costume or something and think I can sneak into the party and but you can't crash that party. You can't artificially enter into that party. It has to be genuine, and that genuineness comes, first of all, through our qualification. By chanting the holy name, Chaita Darpana Marjana, begins with purifying the heart. And then as we go along, as we heard about the krama, the sequence that Jiva Goswami spoke of, that it begins by hearing the name of Krishna, then hearing about the guna of Krishna, then comes the lila of Krishna. It comes in a natural, sequential way. I hope that helps, Jai Gaur. I'm going to read through all the comments first, and then I'm going to go back to the devotees. Lila Purushottam says, could we please get this quote letter from Bhaktisiddhanta in our chat, in our WhatsApp group? Yeah, if I forget, remind me. It's not hard for me at all. And he says, sadhu, sadhu, Hare Krishna. Loka Bidar Hare Krishna, she says, thank you so much for this wonderful session. I always feel inspired by your classes that I tend to watch the day after. It's good to be live today. I have to sign out. Sorry we missed you. And Lila Purushottam offers another comment. Another quote I remember is, the day should come when automatically, when we start chanting, the Lord's Rupa Guna Nila will come in our heart and mind. That's the nature, that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's statement in Harinam Chintami, that Name is Prasvatita Hai Rupa Guna Karma. Gauni Prabhu says, do you think that if Vishwanath today, I mean in the time of the second generation after Srila Prabhupada started a new branch, rewrote his purport about Purva Para, he would mention his previous acaryas, the Six Goswamis, and Bhapracharyas of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Certainly. 100%. of course, we should be thinking like that. I just wanted to be a little harsh, a little dramatic, and present what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, that our present acaryas of the Six Goswamis. In other words, what I was trying to stress is that let's not discount the Six Goswamis. Vishwanath considers them to be the present acaryas, but also, of course, Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Gorkashas Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, these are our present acaryas also, along with our Gurudev. Okay, let's see who else is present here today. And Radha Jivan Gopal Prabhu. Would you like to share anything with us, Prabhu? You need to unmute. We could see you, now you disappeared. You don't hear anything. Are you there?
I have a question. When you were speaking, Haribo.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you were speaking on bhajan, but you were mentioning how sometimes when you go to different mats in Jagannath Puri, the devotees there will ask you who your guru is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious to know what's the proper etiquette when someone, that's a senior or even like a peer, asks you who your guru is, whether they're an ISKCON or, from a different party var. What's the proper etiquette when answering that question?
Proper etiquette is something when we try to understand, we try to follow the rituals or the rules of etiquette without understanding the essential principles of etiquette, then that becomes just mechanical following, which is strange. It's not appreciated. When we want to understand etiquette, we should try to understand the heart of etiquette. And so when we speak of, and to answer your direct question, it depends on the mood of the person. And if I meet someone who's obviously critical or angry and nasty, yeah, you're not with a Gaudiya Mutt or ISKCON or something, are you? Like that. Then I generally just want to be very quick with that person. And I don't know. I'll just say something. I don't know what I'll tell them. But I've got to go. Yeah, I am. I'll see you later. Goodbye. If the person's a little more polite and respectful, then I'll speak. Or maybe the person, sometimes they're trying to canvass you. There's a lot of that going on today in the Vaishnava community, especially with Western devotees. When they see us, as Dinabandhu Prabhu used to commented once, I thought was brilliant. He said that in India, the Indian culture is that people are trained to see Atma, A-T-M-A, that they see the spirit soul everywhere. But today, when they see Western devotees, they drop the last A, and they just see us as ATM machines. They just see the Western devotees as a source of money. And that's a great frustration for all of us. I think all of us, you've spent a lot of time in India. I'm 100% sure you've encountered that. It's something we all encounter when we go to temples in different places. But that's just something I think that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants us to deal with. Because we're coming from America, we're coming from the West, we're coming from Europe. We have this white skin. When we go there, this Krishna wants us to overcome that too. So it depends. And there's some people, they see you, maybe you have money, and they want to canvass you. They want to try to bring you over to their camp or something. And so with them, I'm also, if I smell that, if I see that, I'm very brief with them. But if they're really humble and they're really genuinely appreciative and polite and respectful, then I'll talk with them like a friend. And of course, I'm very happy to speak with them about ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada and so many things. I would say that the most important thing to remember when you ask this question about etiquette is the heart of etiquette. It depends on who it is that we're speaking with and what their mood is. And that goes not only for outside people, but for devotees in ISKCON also. You have somebody, you go to the temple tomorrow in Ypsilanti, and somebody says, hey man, I never asked you anyway, who are you initiated by anyway? You're not initiated by one of those 11, gurus after Prabhupada, are you, something, and you pick up right away, this guy's a Ridvik or something. You want to be careful with him, because if they say something harsh to you, it'll hurt your heart. We should be really, really careful with this. Sometimes we think, oh, I can digest poison, but we're not on the level of Lord Shiva, where we can do that. And if we hear something critical of our Gurudev, we hear something critical of the Vaishnavas, we hear something critical of Prabhupada's mission, ISKCON. And there's a lot of things to be said about it. There's a lot of criticism we can make, and there's a lot of true things. But are we focusing on the bad things, or are we focusing on the good things? We can say, somebody did something 30, 40 years ago. They did some bad thing. They stole some money or something, and therefore we never forgive them. Or they beat some child in the Gurukul or something. But then for 30 years since then, they're chanting Hare Krishna. They're speaking Bhagavatam and that. What's our relationship with them? We have to speak. We have to look at people not just in terms of dictionary definitions. We have to follow our heart. Is that helpful, Radhajeev and Gopal Prabhu?
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. I also found this quote that you stated from Bhaktivinoda Thakur about humility. It said that humility is when one doesn't concoct their own method of bhajan. I thought that was nice.
That's a very special thing. There's so many people, they come up with their own system of bhajan. And I mean, maybe it's a nice system. You're doing something with Nityananda's name or this or that. That's really cool. But I have this question: which guru did you get this from? Which paribar is it coming from? And if you got it from some Vaishnav, who did he get it from? Is it something? Because real humility means we're following Rupa Goswami. We're following the pathway of our previous acaryas. It's a very serious thing. And we should understand very, very deeply the meaning, why we chant Hare Krishna. We spoke about this before in Ypsilanti. We gave our whole session about the different meanings of the Hare Krishna mantra. I think you were present for most or all of that. It's a very important thing to understand, why we chant Hare Krishna. It's not like the chanting Nityananda is better. It has its place. We're chanting Jai Gurudev, that has its place. We chant Jai Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes we do that, but that's not our primary system of bhajan. It's not what our Mahajanas have given. So there's so many people who want to concoct things, and it's a kind of pride, isn't it? And I have my own special thing. I get my own special system. I use Gobar for tilak. So that's really cool. Wow, Radhajeev and Gopal is really far out. He uses Gobar for tilak. That's really cool. Okay, thank you very much, Shivaji. Let's see who else it should be. Siddha Hari Prabhu, you want to comment anything?
There you are. Thank you for speaking.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, I really appreciate your sharing this details regarding how there are two paths and the references for that, because I always heard about these two paths, but I never heard the references or details about it, the inner path and external path. And when I was in Radhakund recently, we were spending some time in Govardhan. I met a Babaji, and he was making this comment that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, was great, but he made one mistake. He completely disregarded the inner path, or usually the external path, like the path of meditating on the Ashtakalya Leela. And I was having a discussion with him. I was saying that he didn't disregard, but he felt that that's not that's not appropriate so much for current time and place. Although this internal and external path are both valid all the time, but in our current time and place, it seems that the internal path that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur felt, the inner path of meditating on the holy name is more powerful, more effective. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, he understood that from the internal will come the external. But if we do it the other way, if we try to go external to internal, then many times we just stay external. And we see that at Radhakund, very frankly, and I say this on the strength of some of the leading Babajis at Radhakund, they've commented that they're giving Siddha Pranali sometimes to Westerners, and they just give the same Siddha Pranali to 20 different devotees. The same Siddha Deha, you're the same name, and etc. They said because they're not qualified for that. So sometimes people practice things in a very external way, and then they just do it to be famous as someone who's practicing Siddha Pranali, or someone, I've got my Ekadas Bhav, I understand, these things. That external path can stay external. But if we begin from the internal, then it'll lead to the external automatically. The external, we don't have to worry about the external. And the same thing with our dress. As Lila Purushottam, it was very nicely, he was citing this thing from Jaiva Dharma when he was in Budapest, when he was here, how amongst the followers of the devotees in Navadvip, when this, what's his name, that Sannyasi Thakur was there, he was getting inspired by associating with the Vaishnavas. And after some time, he thought, this is really bad, dressing up as a Mayavadi sannyasi, and I want to give this up, and I want to dress as a Vaishnava. And they told him, no, don't do that. You're I can see your lips moving, but you're speaking to someone else.
Yeah, I was telling somebody else. No, I'm listening to you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I wasn't sure if your mic was on or not. So the devotees told him that no, that this dress, it's not an external thing. But this dress will come when we cultivate the internal thing, then the external thing will come automatically after some time. Now, sometimes in our society, we push the external thing. We push the external dress. And that's there. It also helps us. And the Babajis, it also helps them. So they'll tell us that practicing this Ekadas Bhav, this external path, helps us. But primarily, we want to cultivate the internal. And for Westerners, our external practice, we try to put on a dhoti and this and that. But I'm not so enthusiastic about pushing that on new people. I'd rather see that something internal comes first, and they understand what they're doing. And a perfect example is I remember doing Harinam on Halloween night in Hollywood Boulevard in downtown LA with the LA Temple devotees. And we saw a group of drunken college students come to us, and there was 2 or 3 of them dressed up like Hare Krishna devotees. One of them, it's really a little disgusting, I'm sorry, but just to give you the graphic impact, one of them had a male genitalia as a nose, a fake nose, and he had a dhoti and kirtan and like tilak and Hare Krishna. And they saw the devotees, and they were completely drunk. And they all danced with the devotees. Well, that's nice. Of course, they dance with the devotees. It's even nice, maybe they put on a dhoti and things. But I wasn't very appreciative of their external adoption of the dress. That should be something which is real. There should be some dignity to the dress that we adopt.
Thank you, Bo. Bo, there was one more thing I was thinking about. I was meditating on this point, that why do devotees look to that external path? Because I find many devotees, after many years, practicing many years, they go to the Babajis and take up the Babaji Vesh or like go in that path. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking that at least there are 2 reasons which are responsible. One is that they don't get to hear enough glorification of the holy names. Like we were reading yesterday, this book by Prema-bhakti-candrika by Jayadev Pandit. It has this chapter which talks about glories of the holy name. Today we heard so many glories of the holy name from you, and hearing the power of the holy name. And I feel many devotees don't hear enough glories of the holy name, and thus they don't develop such a deep relationship with the holy name that they look for other ways to bolster their faith. And that's why they go to Radhakund, Babajis, because they feel that is something that can fill that gap. And another reason I was thinking is that sometimes devotees don't know what is the next step for their spiritual growth. It's like they don't know what's next. They've been chanting for so many years, but what's next? What's next? And it's something also not very clear.
Sadhu, sadhu. Nice comments. Your comments remind me when in 1994, I was traveling with my Guru Maharaj's servant, and we're in Spain, and somebody asked to interview him for the Prabhupada Centennial magazine, because everybody's getting ready for 1996 at that time, which is going to be Prabhupada's centennial year. It was a big thing in ISKCON. So they interviewed him, and one of the questions they asked him, what can we do to bring devotees back who've left ISKCON? And that's your comment about some devotees have left and gone to the Babajis. And Guru Maharaj said, well, the first thing is we should ask the question, why did they leave? And if I give the answer, it may be unpalatable. Why did they leave? And it basically the same thing you're saying, that our dealings are not very sweet, and that we're not giving something deeper for devotees. We have so many wonderful, very, very deep things in our line. But if we're just constantly only stressing the external things and the ABCs and nothing is legal except for the ABCs, and you're not allowed to read Krishna book, Prabhu, and you're not allowed to read the Anjalila of Chaitanya Charitamrita or Teachings of Lord Chaitanya or Nectar of Instruction or the second part of Nectar of Devotion. There's devotee communities who live like that, really. They'll give classes on certain books, but only on Bhagavad Gita and Ishopanishad, the first part of Nectar of Devotion, maybe the first verse of Ishopanishad, of Nectar of Instruction, maybe the first two verses, something like that, but definitely not past that. And not from Chaitanya Charitamrita or from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna book, definitely not. And what happens is devotees, they don't feel satisfied after some time. Now, we may not be on the platform, and I understand why they're doing that. They want devotees to come to a genuine, real platform. It shouldn't be artificial, it shouldn't be imitative, but that's a misconception. It's a misconception that we shouldn't read Prabhupada's books. It's a misconception that we shouldn't follow the previous acaryas. It's a misconception. We have to do that, but we do that in the mood of abhyasa, in the mood of practicing. And we understand that it's not a genuine thing for me. I want to come to the platform of manana. Manana is more like a madhyama adhikari, where I'm distinguishing different things and contemplating. And then after some time, I may come to the point of being an uttamadhikari, where Smarana comes automatically, naturally, which is what we want. And we certainly can't imitate that. But we should follow the practice of abhyasa, of trying to remember and trying to practice manana, of considering why I'm doing these different things. It's very important. Thank you, Prabhu. And thank you for all your help today on the website and that. I'm sorry I haven't been very responsive. I was good at a certain time of the day, and then you were good. And the time you were good, I wasn't able to be on.
Thank you for the opportunity, Prabhu. I look forward to that.
Really, really appreciate it. I want to stay out of this stuff mostly. If devotees will help, I can make books. I can research things. I can make magazines. I've got pictures. I've got art. I've got ideas. And we've got a team that'll even print the books, but I don't have time to be thinking about selling them and making websites and answering letters and things. It kills me. So I really, really appreciate your help, Prabhu. It's a huge thing for me. Thank you. Siddha Hari Prabhu Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. And Radha Jivan Gopal Prabhu asked, was this external style given by the Six Goswamis? The external style, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to go back to our discussion from the Jaiva Dharma, there's a discussion given by Gopal Guru Goswami. Gopal Guru Goswami says that I gave this external path to Jan Chandra Goswami, my disciple. And that's in the form of the Gaur Govinda Smarana Archana Padati, which is a beautiful book, which we sometimes quote. It has some wonderful things about the holy name also, and about Guru, and about our Goswamis, and about the Manjaris and the Sakis. It's a wonderful book. It's a bona fide book. But that's primarily the kind of process that the Babajis take up. Whereas Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that Mahaprabhu, through Sri Damodar, gave the internal path to Raghunath Das Goswami. So, to answer your question. Hari Chandra Prabhu, do you want to share anything? How are you doing today?
Hare Krishna. Very busy, but yesterday we are open here in Ihlava. In our time, we open new place for sharing Krishna consciousness. Oh. We invite, yes, we invite people 12 people was there. It was ecstatic. I'm really tired.
It's really exciting. So we have to do that with our body. We have to open centers and invite people and things, but we also have to practice with our minds too. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, this was my how I thinking about this other duties of the chanter. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati taught that in the sentence. By the service the holy name, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name, it also includes the other duties of the chanter. And I'm wondering about it, about like it's mean for preaching, like sharing Krishna consciousness, or some other.
That's the primary thing that it means. Other duties means that if we're chanting, it's an activity of bhakti. And as we spoke some time back, bhakti, according to Rupa Goswami's definition in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, bhakti means something active. It means engaging in service. So we're chanting the holy name. That's the primary activity of bhakti. This day and age, we have to practice kirtanakya bhakti, or practice kirtan in connection with whatever navavidi bhakti, whatever practice of bhakti we do. Kirtan has to be there. But that kirtan means that I'm also going to do something. I'll distribute books. I'll clean the floor. I'll do deity worship. Manifest in the form of a deity. It means so many things, but especially that service means that I'm serving Guru. And Guru, at this age, he wants us to preach. He wants us to go out and do something. So that preaching is either anvaya or vyatireka-bhyam. It's direct or indirect. We're directly going out, and like you're doing, we're opening a center, we're cooking a feast, we're giving a lecture, we're doing kirtan, we're talking to people outside, giving out invitations, books. That's direct. Indirect may be the cooking, or indirectly maybe I'm doing the deity worship. But that indirect is also preaching. And they should be, while they're doing it, they should be thinking that I'm doing this to help support the preaching. Like here in Budapest, the devotees are taking care of Dhanlitai Vijay Garanga. And the pujaris, they should be thinking that I'm dressing the deities, I'm keeping everything clean to help for the preaching. Everything is in connection with the preaching. They want to support the preaching. Some are doing it directly, some are doing it indirectly. Is that helpful?
Yes, I'm wondering about like this. Like it's complex service.
Even Jiva, there's a purport, and I could look it up if someone reminds me if they really want, where I believe it was Jiva Goswami, maybe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but I think it was Jiva Goswami. He says that even someone may not be able to chant attentively their japa because they're doing service. In other words, their service is to cook. They're cooking the Sunday feast. And they're chanting japa, but while they're chanting japa, they're thinking, should it be split peas and paneer, or should I put some nuts in there, or should I use ghee, should I use potatoes? They're thinking about what they're going to cook with. And Jiva Goswami, as I recall it was, he says that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not, of course, it doesn't mean that we cultivate that. It doesn't mean that while we're chanting japa, we're thinking about what we're going to cook for the feast.
I do it.
But if that thing comes up, we don't worry about that thing. It's automatic. That's also part of our chanting. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, famously, he said we should be chanting 64 rounds. But one thing which many devotees don't know about, and I've spoken with 6 or 8 different disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta who've all left the world now. And what many devotees don't know is that commonly, most of the devotees who were initiated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were chanting 4 rounds a day. Not 16, not 32, not 64, but 4. And some of them even were chanting 0 rounds. But they were with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and they were constantly doing service. One devotee famously came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and complained. He said, Guru Maharaj, this devotee, he's not chanting 1 lakh a day. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, no, he is. I see him chanting. And the devotee said, well, Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry, I'm with him constantly. I live in the same room with him. He's in the bathroom for maybe 20, 30 minutes a day. I'm not with him. Other than that, I'm constantly with him, and he's definitely not chanting 64 rounds. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you don't see it, but I see it. He considered the service, and he said that when you're doing that service, you should be constantly chanting the Maha Mantra. And he considered that to be the same as chanting 64 rounds. Now, that doesn't mean that devotees shouldn't chant 64 rounds. It doesn't mean that many of the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, like Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, chanted 64 rounds for, 50, 60 years strictly. Many of the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were doing that. But it doesn't mean that every single one of them were doing that. And there was a purport to it. We, of course, follow Srila Prabhupada. Our Prabhupada stresses 16 rounds, but really 16 rounds. But I know many devotees in the Gaudiya Math, they have this idea, based on things Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, that if they're doing constant service for their guru, and they're chanting japa while they do that, maybe they don't even chant any rounds, but they're just chanting constantly. And I've seen some very advanced Vaishnavas like that. That's not what Srila Prabhupada encouraged in ISKCON, but it's there. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harichandra Prabhu. Jai Gaur, would you like to share something? I see you had a question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can we get to see your smiling face?
There
There we are.
we go.
Still in the
Back to when you were speaking about
You're going in and out. I don't know if there's a better room, we have a better connection or something, but it's really hard to hear you. We're losing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. At least for a second. Looks like you froze up again.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
We can hear you. All right. No, we lost him. Okay, Jaigor. While we're waiting for Jaigor to come back, and hopefully he will, maybe Lila Purushottam, do you want to share something? I saw you had a question also. You want to read your question? Or should I read that? Or go ahead.
He's back. Jaigor is back.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we almost lost your place, you know. Lila Purushottam.
Yeah, I was a little afraid there.
You got replaced.
Sorry about that. My internet was bad. But is everything okay now? You can hear me?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Going back to when you were speaking about Tatkalika and Sarvakalika, I was thinking about that, and I had a note on it here real quick. So Sarvakalika is determined by basically like aligning the instructions of a contemporary sadhu with previous Mahajans and Shastra. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sarvakalika would be chanting the holy name. But that's an instruction for all time and all place. Tatkalika might be you put a jar of bhajans out for the new people.
So it seems like the discrepancy is what is Tatkalika contemporarily. So like my mind can't help but go to controversial, things like the nature of the jiva and different things that Srila Prabhupada has said about that, and sometimes devotees, it might be disturbing because devotees, and without trying to be offensive to the way that it seems to me, is sometimes devotees don't want to be thoughtful, and they just want to take everything that Prabhupada said. Like, they don't want to have to think like about Prabhupada's instructions as being in different categories, but that they can just kind of blindly accept everything he says without having to, put some thought into it. And so it kind of seems like, in one sense, it's not, but in another sense, Tatkalika could be what's the word? Subjective, depending on who you ask.
100%. And the
so
thing,
how do we navigate that?
Well, it's first of all, we have to trust people. We have to trust devotees. We have to trust preachers. Now, in the beginning, when you have a small child, you want to teach them to walk, and you help them. You hold their hand, and it's not that you don't necessarily trust them. It's just that you don't trust them. Actually, you're afraid they're going to fall over, so you're holding their hand so in case something happens. And so with new preachers, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would ask them to speak, and he would watch what they were saying, and he would correct them, and he would say things. That's holding the hand. But at a certain point, Prabhupada also trusted devotees. And he said, you go out and preach. And that trust means that they've become expert enough, they've understood the heart of their Guru Maharaj enough. That's a real preacher. They understand the heart of their Guru enough that they can understand what is Tatkalika, what is needed for the time and place. I'll give you another example. I have a friend, very thoughtful friend. He's a Sanskrit scholar, and lives in South India, and he studied many different commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. And we get together and we have discussions sometimes, and he says, so let's talk about Vedanta Sutra. And I had to tell him, well, to tell you the truth, I've never really studied Vedanta Sutra very much. And he said, oh, that's really bad. He says, and we should. It's a fact. We should study Vedanta Sutra, but I haven't. Why haven't I studied Vedanta Sutra very much? To tell you frankly, because it's not really very Tatkalika for me. If you're living in South India with a bunch of Sri Vaishnavas and Madhva Vaishnavas, it's extremely important. But here in Hungary, people don't understand it whatsoever. Even in most places in North India, they don't understand it at all. And there's other things which are more relevant. And I generally focus on that. So it's always going to be a controversy also, because some devotees will say that, well, Tatkalika means someone recently told me that I was saying we shouldn't be blind followers. You saw what I wrote the other day, maybe. And somebody commented on that. They said, well, but in Kali Yuga, basically everybody's blind. And therefore we need to have Vanashram. Because everybody's blind, we need to have some simple rules and regulations for everybody. And that's a very good point. It's a fact. But he's not understanding my point. I'm not speaking for the general public. I'm speaking for the devotees. And if the devotees are all blind, then who's going to guide the Vanashram? We'll just have a whole bunch of blind people doing who knows what in the name of Vanashram. It's going to be completely useless. You can't be blind followers. So there's some controversy with that. Now, some people we know that they want to stress Vanashram. And there's a good reasons for that, because they see there's a lot of very simple people, perhaps where they're preaching, perhaps the devotees need that, and they focus on that thing. And maybe it's very, very simple, and they don't encourage them to think very much. They just encourage them, you just act, you just do this and this, you follow these rules, and that's okay. And then someone else comes and says, no, don't be a blind follower, and you should contemplate what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, or this or that. And then they say, oh my God, that's like really complicated, and that's like really, I got, like you just said, I have to think about that a lot. Some people don't like to think, and that's okay. We've also got something for you too. You just work hard. It's okay. You just go out in the fields and chant Hare Krishna while you're working, and do some Vanashram, something like that. And that's beautiful. And we love them. We love them because they're chanting Hare Krishna. They're our brothers and sisters. Maybe I can't have such a deep philosophical discussion with them, but they're very, very special persons because they're chanting. If we can't love all devotees, there's something wrong with us.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Looks like
Yeah,
you're
Prabhu.
I'm glad to see you have your eye protection glasses so we don't have to take you into the Puri General Hospital.
Yeah, they're available here in America. You can buy eye protection. One quick comment on that I just wanted to make. Perhaps it was Ujjwala Rasiga, I think last week in the class, or it could have been someone else, but someone was commenting that, appreciating that the mood of your Guru Maharaj that you were mentioning, that as opposed to focusing on different political and social issues within the movement, he focused purely on just Krishna Katha and as the answer, and you made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was really wonderful. You said you would suggest that he saw those things as one and the same, where the meaning that the solution for all problems, social or political or otherwise, was just to have Krishna Katha. And it reminded me of what you were saying.
Yeah. That's so close to my heart right now. And I see, as we started mentioning in the beginning, I don't know if you were there in the very beginning of this session, just for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I was there.
About how since COVID has come,
I wasn't there for that.
so many controversies, and so many people with so many things, and even devotees. And some devotees are upset about a COVID conspiracy, and they may be right. You commented to me that you think actually maybe it actually started it in China, the COVID virus, and it turned out it looks like it actually did. But I didn't get into it at that time, but I really don't care where the COVID virus started, and if it was a controversy or not. It's just something I've got to deal with. I want to focus on the whole. There's always some distraction. There's other people who are concerned about the war in Ukraine, and there's other people concerned about child abuse now in ISKCON. And I don't mean to be harsh or unsympathetic. We love the children. We love the devotees in Ukraine. I'm concerned about the devotees during COVID. I want to protect them from unnecessary vaccinations or things. But all those things are distractions. And the main thing is the name. That's the main solution. And then secondarily, I respect if someone wants to take up and protect the devotees in Ukraine, if someone wants to protect the devotees from false vaccinations or help protect our society, help purify it in different ways. I respect that. And they're devotees. We love them. But for me, I'm sorry, I want to do kirtan. And I want to do Hari Katha because I see it's the one thing that's really lacking. And if we don't do that, then you can give more money for child protection in ISKCON. You can give millions of dollars for child protection in ISKCON, but if you don't change the consciousness of devotees, you'll always have a problem with child abuse. If we don't change the consciousness of the devotees, it doesn't mean we shouldn't have child protection. Of course we should. It doesn't mean we shouldn't give money for it. But the primary thing I see is we need to change the consciousness of the devotees. That's not a very popular thing to speak about in public. I say here, people are they freak out and they say, "Oh, that's sentimental." And there's a reason why they say it's sentimental, because there's some devotees who, frankly, preach a very kind of Laghu version of chanting the holy name, which is based mostly on the institution. And you just be a member, and we do 16 of these and 4 of these, and this external thing and that external thing. And they see that as kind of an escape. And many of them have used that as an escape, and they've tried to avoid issues in the society, like abuse of women, abuse of children, different things. And it's terrible. It's a terrible thing. We should be caring about those children, of course. But if we don't change the consciousness of people, just throwing money at something or giving lectures and talking about psychiatry and group counseling and things, it's not going to solve the problem. It's just like blowing on the boil. It'll feel better for a little while, but it's not ultimately going to solve the problem. I'm really passionate about this, and let people demonize me for it. I'm sorry, but the Hare Krishna movement, the Stop Child Abuse movement, the Stop the War in Ukraine movement, the Stop the COVID virus movement, stop the animal slaughter movement. There's so many causes that even devotees get caught up in. And they're good causes. I respect them. I don't mind it. And if someone wants to dedicate themselves to that, I respect that. And maybe they'll help make the world a better place. I don't have much faith in it, but maybe they can. And I'm not against them. I'm not going to work against them 100%. But 100% sure I'm not going to work against them. But I have the program.
Jai, I think if people demonize you for it, then we'll everyone here will be willing to go down with you.
I want to go down with my Guru Maharaj. I just hold on to his lotus feet. And I'm not going to go down and go. Just protect me.
Thank you, Guru.
All right. Anybody else want to share? You want to share anything, Lila Purushottam Prabhu?
Yeah, maybe I would like to. I was thinking with the discussion of changing the bhajan, I was thinking how important would be the consideration that often what we see is not exactly changing the externals, like these, like the form of the sadhana remains the same, but we might change the conception behind it. And that would be oftentimes even more serious because it looks same, but in that way it would be even more dangerous actually.
Yeah, like the Mayavadis. I visited the Govardhan Mutt in Jagannath Puri, just close to the ocean. That was established by Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. And you go in there and they have a deity of Krishna. They have Jagannath Baladi Subhadra also, and they chant the Hare Krishna mantra amongst other things. But what is their conception? Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma Soham. Their conception is something impersonal, but they're chanting Hare Krishna. So yeah, that's a very, very dangerous thing. It's so important that we preserve the teachings of our acaryas, and it's so important that not only we study Srila Prabhupada's books, but as Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu once commented, I thought was very beautiful. He said, I read the commentaries of the previous acaryas, and I read them now to see what Srila Prabhupada gave us. So it's kind of like reading Prabhupada gave us the previous acaryas. So from Prabhupada, he went through that door. Then he goes through that door, and then he goes back from the acaryas back to Prabhupada, and he looks at it from the other perspective.
Yeah.
See what Prabhupada gave us and what Prabhupada didn't give us. Maybe Prabhupada didn't give everything in the purport. What was some of the things Prabhupada didn't give? Why didn't he give those things? Or maybe he gave them in a certain way. And that's also very important, because if we do that, then we're going to have strong faith in Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we do that, then our movement's going to be very strong. It won't become a cult, a personality cult just based around Prabhupada. Where people say, no, that this is very firmly fixed in our acaryas, and we have our disciplic line, and Prabhupada's connected with them. It's not just that we're the Prabhupada cult. And when we only stress Prabhupada, we've seen some devotees lose faith because they feel like it's a cult. And then they leave and they go to Babaji's or Gaudiya Math devotees who speak more about our previous acaryas also. We have to keep the previous acaryas with Srila Prabhupada. We have to keep Srila Prabhupada. He's our current acharya, as Gornitai Prabhu was nicely commenting, is he's so important for us. He's our founder acharya. But we also need to connect with the previous acharyas as Srila Prabhupada instructed us repeatedly to do. And of course, at a certain time, it's not for people, it's not that we're going to tell people the Sunday feast lecture, new people. We have this really cool book we'd like you all to read called Prema-bhakti-candrika. You should all study this. We should promote Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita and the earlier books of Prabhupada, but at a certain point they should also read Prema-bhakti-candrika. It's important.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear it put like this, because that's beautiful connection, like how to express the understanding of Srila Prabhupada's position and even our loyalty to him, but in a not non-sectarian way, in a proper deep way. Yeah.
Not in a blind way, not in a sentimental way.
Yeah.
We love Srila Prabhupada because Srila Prabhupada gave us Rupa Goswami. We love Srila Prabhupada because he's representing Sanatana Goswami perfectly. And we know it because I've read Hari Bhakti Vilas, I've read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. You can see that Prabhupada is representing.
Yeah, because then if we would not do this so precisely, so carefully, then I have to speak for myself. I met with so many deviations actually in the name of following Srila Prabhupada. Like statements like Srila Prabhupada was such a great acharya that he could contradict previous acharyas. I mean, if I hear this, I just imagine a situation. Try to say this directly to Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, I had some few more thoughts, especially because I liked your discussion with Siddhari Prabhu, and I was thinking like there were. I was so appreciative of the whole topic, how you put it, and I actually came up with a proper title for this class. It should be a Manifesto for sampradaya raksana. Because it was so important things. And connecting it with my own experience, actually, I have to confess here that really what's the danger is that when we try to enter into the Smarana system of bhajan prematurely, then we will necessarily, always unnecessarily, as you like it, we will always face frustration, like inner frustration, because it won't work actually, and we will be always like falling down from our imaginative smaranam whatever, and the result very, very easily can be that we will lose the faith for the whole process, for the whole process of Krishna consciousness. So that was when Siddhari Prabhu was asking about his discussion with the Babaji on Radha Kund. That were my thoughts. Like, you cannot advise or instruct anyone to enter into the Smaran Bhajan without being sure that his, like, say technically, that his chitta is pure, that his heart is pure, so that he can really he really has the adhikar for that.
I can't say that I'm familiar with all the Babajis at Radhakund by any means, but I as far as I understand, and I have some friends there, and I know some people there, I've seen there are different groups too. It's not everyone is following the Gorgavana Smarana Archana Paddy kind of path of Siddha Pranali, but some of them are chanting the holy name 24 hours a day, just chanting Hare Krishna constantly, following the path of Raghunath Das Goswami.
Yeah. I was also thinking, like, when he was asking this situation, why are people leaving for the Babaji line? I was thinking, actually, they might exactly like switch the terminology, because what I see among devotees many times, when they speak about the Babaji line procedure, they consider it like internal, like they consider Smaran as something internal and chanting as something external. So it's just a They just don't understand the terminology properly.
Maybe that's the result of our preaching, our behavior in our society.
Yeah.
That we're being so external, so shallow, that although we're following the internal path, we present it in such a shallow way that it seems like the
Yeah. That's,
I also, I was thinking of your comment you make quite often too, that you heard from, anyway, about Kopana. We have to be careful. Kopana means some imagination. We're meditating on something. I'm meditating that I'm serving Shri Radha and Krishna, and I'm making a flower garland, and I'm putting it on. I'm handing it to Rupa Manjari, and Rupa Manjari is putting on Radharani. But my meditation is I've seen so many horror movies or something. I'm thinking, I see Godzilla instead of instead of Rupa Manjari. Whatever, some speculation.
That's exactly describing what's my confession, that you will have to face inner frustration, because you will always be falling down from that imaginations.
Yeah, and then you lose faith in the process. It's a very important point. It just doesn't work. That's great.
That's my manifesto of sampradaya raksana.
Gorni Taipu says, we know that the holy name reveals everything, but how we chant japa or bhajan or sankirtan also we have to take into consideration. Especially I'm amazed and shocked that here in Mayapur, the original birthplace of the sankirtan movement, I could hardly join a well-organized team chanting, dancing program. In the main temple, there are so many visitors who are not coming for chanting. In other places, it's very difficult to find regular kirtan going on. In home programs, the place is very small. We can only do bhajan sitting together. Am I right that it's not enough? Am I right that I should find a way to have regular sankirtan opportunities, or am I a sentimental fault finder? We have Krishna Kohn's comment. We have to plug in. We have to plug in with the right group. But some groups, I've seen sometimes some kirtans, even in Mayapur. Personally, I'm not against any instruments. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says when we start having a lot of Western instruments and we have less of the mridanga and the kartals, then the holy name starts to disappear. And I've seen that even in Mayapur. When you have djembe drums and you have loud bass guitar and things, then there's dancing and there's singing going on. But I personally, I don't find that very inspiring. Some devotees might. But I know when Agnidev Prabhu was there in Mayapur, Krishna Kun and I were going regularly and sitting. I like Agnidev Prabhu very much. He's an old friend. We just sit and do kirtan, bhajan with him. It's so inspiring for the heart. So you have to find that group. We were doing bhajan regularly with Naranjan Maharaj, very close to you there in Rasamrita Kunj. You have to plug in. You have to find your place wherever we're at. And it's not enough just to be a general devotee. When we first come, that we can be a general devotee. We go to the Sunday feast program and people tell us, Prabhu, don't miss the Sunday program. It's so important. You should always come to the Sunday program. And we go to the Sunday program, and sometimes the kirtan is kind of like a Hare Krishna rock dance or something. And it's okay, it's nice, but we don't find the sweetness and the intimacy that we might find with a higher Vaishnava. That's really important. Anybody else here in the room want to share anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop. Okay. All right. Next week, I think we're going to be on. I think we're okay. I'll let everybody know if we're not. Anyway, thank you all very much. It's really a privilege to get association with the devotees. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava.